what is the best material for a fretless fingerboard? So when Roger said ebony, he got my attention. I said, Roger, what do you think if we make two instruments, one with ebony and one with snakewood? And then we can settle this dispute. Yeah, we'll make two. Let's make them identical except for the fingerboard. And I said, let's do three of them. My mind was blown at the difference in the sounds of the woods. Not taking any shortcuts here, so I certainly didn't in this long-ass explanation. Ooh, that's tone. I mean, for me, this is what bass playing is about. One beautiful note, one at a time, usually, but not always. My name's Steve Bailey, and I'm a bass player, obviously. I'm an educator, and I'm also a really curious person. And I feel so fortunate to be involved in maybe the coolest experiment of my life, at least musically speaking. A little background. I've been with Warwick for a long time now, and about however many years ago it was, but before the pandemic, Warwick and Sadowsky united, which I was really excited about. Roger Sadowsky and I have a history, and it was one of me admiring his instruments, hearing Will Lee and all the other great session players in New York using it, and in Los Angeles and all over, using a Sadowsky bass. And I always used to say, Roger, when I'd see him at a trade show or in New York, when are you going to make a six string? And Roger always said, I'm just not going to do it. Not going to make a six string. So much to my surprise, after the uniting with Warwick, I saw Roger, and he said, Steve, I got some news for you. And we were having dinner that night, and he says, we're going to make a six string. And I said, please, please let me be involved in however I can be. I've been playing six string a long time. I mean, Anthony Jackson is our godfather. And then I believe it was John Patitucci and myself in the 80s who got one at about the same time. So I love it. It's been a part of my musical voice, along with 4 strings and 5 strings, and occasionally a 2 string, which I love. I was just really excited to be involved in this. So eventually, after I was over here the last time, I saw some prototypes, and I said, let me play those. I just want to experiment and see what's up with the pickups and all of that. There were 4 of them, and you might have seen those in another video. And I was so intrigued by the way they felt, because they felt like a Sadowsky. The weight was like a Sadowsky. It was amazing. And one thing led to another, and I was talking to Roger about making a bass for me, a 6-string, of course. And we were talking about fretlesses, and here's where it gets curious for me. Roger said, what fingerboard material do you want? So one thing I've learned in life in general is before I answer a question, I do like to ask one. And it's usually the same question that's asked me. It's no, what do you think or whatever. But somebody as great as Roger, a builder with his history, I want to know what he thinks. Before I poison him with my ideas, I want to hear his. I said, so Roger, what do you think the best fingerboard material for a fretless is? And he says, well, it's always been ebony. You know, ebony's the go-to. And And the first thing that pops into my head is the great violins, the cello through the years, the double basses, jazz double bass, classical double bass. Almost always the top end instruments have ebony. So there's a history there. It's documented and it's real. But when I came over here to Warwick years ago, designing my signature model, we went through that barn full of exotic woods out there, and I had only heard about snakewood. I have never put my hands on it before then. And I was told that snakewood is harder than ebony and has a different tonal characteristic. And I said, well, do we have a piece big enough to make a fingerboard with? And they said yes, which later I found out is pretty darn rare. So I said, let's try a fingerboard in snakewood. And I've been using snakewood ever since. For me, it's such a great tone, but I've gotten so used to it that that's what my ears hear. So when Roger said ebony, he got my attention. I said, Roger, my experience is with snakewood and I love it. And he said, well, but ebony has a history. And that spawned this idea. I said, Roger, what do you think if we make 2 instruments, one with ebony and one with snakewood? And then we can settle this dispute that I'm having inside of my head, and other people I'm sure have wondered about. What is the best material for a fretless fingerboard as far as tone goes? When I say tone, I'm talking about sustain. I'm talking about clear articulation. I'm talking about that growl that you can get on a fretless. A lot goes into however we define tone. We talk to the powers that be here at Warwick, and without even having to fight for it, it was agreed on. Yeah, we'll make 2. And I said, let's do this. And he asked about the body colors and all of that. I said, let's make them identical except for the fingerboard. It was like, oh, you want 2 basses that look exactly the same? And I said, yeah. And meanwhile, I'm hatching this very thing that we're doing right now in my mind. So they started into production. We started setting dates. And then at the NAMM show, I saw Roger there, and I saw Hans Peter there, and I saw Nico there, and I saw the whole Warwick crew. And I started looking at other Sadowskys. I think it was in a catalog. I saw one with a maple fingerboard that had been finished the way Jaco Pastorius used to finish his basses, with some kind of boat polyurethane epoxy finish. And I thought, wow, that's probably been used on more fretlesses than just about any, given who originated the idea of doing it, Jaco Pastorius. I pulled Nico aside and I said, I know we're under a time crunch, and I pitched the idea, let's do 3 of them. And one thing I've loved about Warwick from the beginning, I remember their motto when I first joined the team here was, if you can dream it, we can build it, along with the other slogans about the tone of wood and all of that. Just when Nico said, okay, let me check and see if we can do it by the deadline of when you get here. And that was coming up pretty quick. So lo and behold, I showed up here 2 days ago, and 3 beautiful Sadowsky Warwick basses were here. And I felt like a proud papa in a way. I was going to say 3 twins, but that's just wrong. Triplets. They're born, and I immediately went into this room downstairs where there's amps, and I said, I got to hear the difference between these. And my mind was blown at the difference in the sounds of the woods. And it's an experience I've never had, of hearing them back to back in the same room, the same exact bass, in the same exact space, in the same exact place. And you should have seen the look on my face. Anybody got any more aces? Oh, no, that's enough. That's called, that's called taking it too far, really. So here we are today. I'm going to record a whole bunch of stuff. And this is for you bass nerds out there, the ones like me who are obsessed with tone, the ones who are curious about a lot of different possibilities and what they might sound like. And you're going to get a unique look at something, as far as I know, has never been done before, at least to this degree of identical instruments made to I don't know, 1,000th of an inch. I don't know how close we measure here, but I think it's probably close enough to get us to the moon. And the only difference between the three instruments is the fingerboard material. The same fingers on both hands, the same mind. It's going to be a lot of the same notes. So we'll definitely be able to compare apples, oranges, and grapefruits. We'll nickname them that, maybe. I don't know. But anyway, I'm glad you're with us. Sorry for this long spiel, but I think it's worth it to set this project up because as I look around here, even the making of this video, the expense and the amount of people's time that it takes to do this makes me grateful, and it also makes me dedicated to not taking any shortcuts here. So I certainly didn't in this long-ass explanation. And I'll see you right back here, and we'll get the experiment underway. Thank you for sitting through a lot of that. I know some of it was a bit tedious, but I really wanted to get into the tone of all of the range of the instrument and using a G major scale in different ways. I know you heard some things. I heard some things. My job here is not to pick a favorite, but your job is actually, should you decide to accept it, is to give us some comments. What do you think? And I'll be reading those. I'm really curious because I hear some amazing, almost revelations that I've never experienced before playing these kind of fingerboards back to back. So I look forward to your comments and your perspectives, and they will be taken into account by me and everybody here at Sadowsky and Warwick and hopefully around the world. So if you had a good time, or even if you didn't, if you learned something, you don't always have to have a good time to learn something. Make sure you go to all of our social medias and like us and click notifications, and then click that little bell, and they'll become active, and you'll know what's going on in my world and our world and around the world with Warwick and Sadowsky. Thank you.